Greetings and welcome back to the Friday 13th YouTube channel. You're watching the interview with Devon Graves from Psychotic Waltz. This is part 4. I hope you enjoy it. As you know, it's a real long in-depth interview as we're talking about the history of the band right from the very beginning on Oslan right to the very end of the God-Shaped Void. So in between there you're going to be watching Devon talking about his band, Dead Soul Tribe and the Shadow Theory. So please enjoy. Like I said, this is part 4. Part 5's coming soon, which is the last one. Be glad to know. So enjoy anyway. So be safe, metalheads. Please share on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram and any social media sites, especially Facebook groups. Thanks for watching. Enjoy part 4. Stay safe, metalheads. Alright then, Devon, I'm going to talk about the second album now, Into the Everflow.
we got 4 more to go.
Okay, well, Into the Everflow. So why the title for this album? How do you see this album as a progression from the first one? Like you said, you turned things down a little bit on this second album.
Well, this is where we tried to go more atmospheric instead of being like literal, like all this mathematic. You know, we want to be interesting. We want to be different, but how to be different? You know, so we kind of spaced out the rhythm structure to give this breathing room. But we introduced a lot of color into the music, you know, a lot of mood and vibe. And and I consciously approach each album lyrically with a certain I try to have a new agenda, so to speak. Like the first album, I told you, I was probably talking so much I never like finished why it was called A Social Grace, really finished, but it was really those songs were really like I said, they were about the state of the world and so forth, and so that title seemed to sum it up. And now when we're going into this next record, I remember being at a party with some of the guys in the band, and I remember Ward specifically was there, and there was a painting of Salvador Dali on the wall, a print, you know, the one with the melting clock and all the really surrealistic imagery. And I was looking at that and I said, Ward, I want my lyrics to sound like this painting looks. And in other words, I said my piece about the state of the world, but I didn't want to continue doing that same thing. I didn't want to like, oh, and here's another complaint I have, and here's another thing, you know, I wanted to go on a journey. So so the first album was about all the kind of the troubles of the world, the troubles of our species. And then the next album was supposed to be an escape. And I wrote most of those lyrics on this long walk to the practice room. I was getting into this walking to the practice room phase, and it was a good long way. It was probably took me an hour each direction. And I had paper and pad, and I was just writing the whole time. Anything that comes to mind. It was just like really freestyle poetry. And I was getting into these kind of colorful lyrics that were, you know, filled with imagery, but not a lot of critical meaning, you know. And now, when we would write our music, it was always the same way. They would write the music themselves as a band amongst themselves, and then I would come in and then get a recording of that and then write my vocals over that. And I remember distinctly having a little, that 4-track recorder we were talking about. I had one of these in my room, mic plugged right into it, and I remember having this kind of thought like, okay, I don't have anything written, but they have this whole album's worth of material here, and I got this pad of paper with all these lyrics on it. And I thought, you know, sometimes my first idea, the first flow through is the best idea, and this time I want to record it. And so played the thing, had the headphones on, and just played the songs in the order of which, whatever order they were on the tape. And then I just started going through the lyrics, just kind of turning the pages and then finding something. And like, okay, so I like read it and, you know, in melody, just off the top of my head. And then maybe this goes to the next part of the song and I flip pages, go to a whole other poem, you know, and then just start reading that. And and I did it all the way to the end of that tape. I just winged it through. And I remember thinking, well, my theory didn't really work out, because I don't think that was so great what I just did. And but I listened back to it, and I was like, God, I think I'm finished. You know, I kind of wrote the vocals for that whole album in one everflow, in one flowing organic session. There might be a few standouts that I wrote separately. Freak Show, I'm pretty sure I did that separately, because I think they brought that to me later. But most of these, like Into the Everflow, Butterfly, Out of Mind, definitely those. And there were certainly more. Tiny Streams for sure. And yeah, just busted them out like that.
So the title for the album, Into the Everflow, just came through that, flowing with the songs.
Yeah. And I wanted to write this, this, I don't know what you call it, a synopsis or something that would go with the record. Like maybe it would have been in the album cover or something. And it was talking about like what I was calling the Everflow. And I wrote this big long thing, and it was basically saying that all of the knowledge, all the information, whether it be from the distant past till now, and God knows, maybe to the future, all of that knowledge exists out there. It's there. And anyone can tap into it at any time and just channel this stuff. And I wrote a big paper on it, and then I lost that paper, and I didn't want to write it again. So I left it out. I never really explained what I meant by Everflow, but it was kind of like this ever-flowing stream of mass consciousness that I still believe in to this day. That is something we all have access to. Like, say, for example, if you have a question, what you can do, what I do, if I have a question, I will, in my imagination, I will ask somebody specific who I think would know the answer.
Okay.
And then I would just imagine what they would say back. And you'd be surprised. You would be surprised that you get answers. You know, you really get answers. And at least that's what I believe. And so that was what that was kind of about.
I mean, when I listen to the album, like songs like The Butterfly, a really strange song. What made you come up with a title like The Butterfly? What inspired you?
About transformation.
Right.
And it was also a nod to my musical idols, you know.
That's cool. I mean, like the album you changed to Dream Circle Records for that album, another German label. Unfortunately, no longer together. But I mean, you had 2 album covers for that album, didn't you? Because I bought the reissue that with the Disturbing the Priest on it. Why did you not use that cover for the original?
I don't know. You know, I remember when I told you about the Jester story. Well, I remember with Everflow, I had this vision. It was really like a photograph that I had this idea. I would talk to Mike about it, and I said, I don't know, like there's a river and it's at night, and maybe there's a branch hanging over, maybe even dipping into the water, but you can't really tell what it is, but that's what it is. It's a branch in a river. And I saw it like a photograph, and from a completely different angle, that just the branch and just a little bit of the water was all I saw. And Mike ran with that and painted the tree, and put all the brains in the sky, and he has the river. So he's taken my ideas and then kind of like interpreted them in his own way. But he made that one, I think, I don't know if it was acrylic or if it was oil. I think it might have been an oil painting.
So great cover. I mean, considering when you look at the original cover, which was kind of bland when it compared to the reissue cover, looks miles better. I don't understand why Dream Circle don't use that one that you just mentioned.
Well, that was the one I mentioned was the original cover, with the painting of the tree and the river at nighttime.
Right, okay.
Which sounds vaguely like what I described, but was in no way the image I had in my mind. But
right.
But it's funny because I almost want to go look at that record that you're talking about, because I don't remember what the new one looks like.
Because I think you reissued it yourselves, because I remember buying it at one of your concerts.
I know we did it with Mosquito when we changed the album cover.
Yeah, you did it with that as well, which is kind of strange. But I mean, I love the second album artwork. I think it looks more mystical, more darker and gloomy, but it was a really good cover. I mean, like I say, I mean, I don't understand why you reissued it yourselves. I mean, you put Disturb the Priest on there, which is a classic Sabbath song with Gillan. I mean, obviously you're Gillan. A big
Oh,
Gillan
right,
fan.
right. But didn't that have the same cover? It didn't have
No,
the same
no,
cover.
totally different cover.
Well, maybe they couldn't find the original artwork or something. Maybe they had to replace it with some. I don't remember what that second reissue looks like. I probably never even had it in my hands.
I'll send you a link for it after we've done the interview so you can check it out. But I really like it. It's a really, really, really good cover. It's different compared to
I'm
the
sure I
original.
have it here. I have the box set, but I never opened it because I wanted. Maybe it's going to be worth something someday.
So who produced the second album for the people that don't know? Who produced it?
Technically, it was Ralph Huber, but he really wasn't the producer. He was more like the engineer. And we always produce our own music. The closest we got to working with a producer who like really got involved with the music is Scott Burns, and that some good came with that, and some really bad came with that. In fact, some of that is part of why the band broke up. It was kind of rough, but generally we produce everything we've done, and we make all the musical decisions. We make the mixing decisions. When Ralph was working with us on Everflow, like he wanted to be the producer. He thought that would be probably good for him, and thought it would be good for us too. But there were things that we didn't want to repeat. I personally, I liked working with him. I did that Strange Mind of Buddy Lackey album, and I worked with him, and he was actually a real pleasure to work with, and he was good at knowing when we had the take, like working with me as a vocalist. He was pretty good, but he was too scared to take risks. I remember one time Dan's really pissed about the 12-string acoustic guitar on that album, because he used Ralph's acoustic guitar with some old rusty strings, and Dan said he wanted to change the strings, and Ralph wouldn't let him change the strings. And I remember a time where I wanted to do a backwards echo, and I told him how to do it. We did it on the first record, and but you have to take the tape and put it around backwards.
Yeah.
And then you have to record on the opposite track that you're intending to record. Like if you want to record on track 1, you have to record on track 24, but we knew how to do it. We did it on Successor. And and I told him I wanted to do that, and he said, "No, this is too risky." Yeah.
A lot of people don't know that he's in Beacon Delta, wasn't he? Okay, so
Yeah, he was really great with them. Like Ralph was actually a really talented guy. It's just that with Psychotic Waltz, I think it's better in our hands. I really liked how we did the last album. I'll probably jump. You're probably going to get to the last album.
We'll do, yeah.
But I liked how we just did that all in our own environments. We hired a really good engineer and to record it, and then we hired a really good mixer to mix it. And only minor, like when he mixed it, we would maybe give little minor instructions, only like, oh, bring this part up, or the vocal balance is the harmonies is like this, but it should be like this, little things like that. But that is, we have the idea what it should sound like. We know what it should sound like. So if you work with a producer, he can either help make it better, or he can get in the way.
Yeah.
And so the best scenario is when we were kind of in control with engineers that wanted to experiment. That's another thing that made the first album such a joy, because we wanted to do all these studio tricks and backwards reverbs and all this stuff. And the engineer Mike Harris was a great engineer, was all for it, was really down with experimenting. And he was the one, in fact, that came up with the idea of stopping the tape. I think what song is it at the end of on the first album? But the song, he's like, okay, right at the end of the song, instead of like turning off the recording tape, I want to press stop on the master so that it goes pew at the end.
Right, yeah, another one you mean, yeah.
Yeah. And so, yeah, so it's fun working with guys like that.
So what songs from Into the Everflow are your favourites, and why? Do you have any favourites?
Into the Everflow and
Yeah.
Butterfly, I really like. I like Out of Mind. I like Tiny Streams. I like that whole album. I really love Freak Show. That riff, that guitar riff, is one of the coolest riffs I've ever heard in my life, man. Still to this day, it's like, wow, that's awesome.
Do you play that live? I'm not sure if I've seen you play that song live.
We didn't play it on the last tours, but we've played it almost every tour.
Yeah, because I've seen you on every tour since the Mosquito tour was the first time I saw you alive.
Oh, you've definitely heard us play that, man.
Yeah, there's that many cool songs. So was it a successful album for you then in sales, would you say? Into the Everflow?
No, I don't think we've ever had a successful album in terms of sales, you know. Probably the closest we came might be the God-Shaped Void, because we hit charts on that, which we've never done in our lives. But our career is kind of like a slow burn, you know. We never had any overwhelming success by putting out an album, you know. Nothing's ever like blown up, but we were lucky in a strange way that what we did has this longevity, you know.
Right.
Like it. And another thing that's kind of weird is that I noticed that, I remember what we talked about when I said, you know, hearing our music the first time, maybe it's too much to take in. And
yeah.
And that was what we would notice, especially if we play like festivals in front of crowds in the old days, in front of crowds that were, you know, maybe there to see Primus or whoever. When we would play, you know, there would be the people that dig it. We could see them and maybe they already know who we are. And then a whole bunch of people that were kind of oblivious and don't really care that much. And the weird thing is that when we got back together in 2010, and we did that Power of Metal tour.
Yeah, that was with Symphony X and Nevermore.
Huh?
That was with Symphony X and Nevermore, I believe.
Yes. And that was like for us to test, like, is our audience still there? Do they still want to hear us? You know, this is the perfect chance to find out. And what was a really interesting eye-opener, I don't know what's changed, if it's something about the way we bring it out, or just something about how this new generation of people have they're in a different place than, you know, when we were in the first run, you know, the big bands were like Dream Theater. And so once Dream Theater came in, it's kind of like progressive metal went in that direction. Like that was what all the bands wanted to be, Dream Theater, you know?
Yeah, that's
and
right, yeah.
Some still do. And so they kind of patterned themselves after that style. And I think that maybe that the audience was also intrigued with that as well. And we're kind of out here at left field playing, we're more like Sabbath, in my opinion, more maybe a little more developed in some ways, but maybe not. I don't know. But guitar wise, most definitely. But I never looked at us as a prog band, so to speak. But
that's what I like about you, Devon. You're so unique and you don't sound like Dream Theater. That's why I've got so much respect for you guys.
Well, thanks, man. What I wanted to say though, is that on this Power of Metal tour, here we come playing that same old stuff, and people were receiving it. People were getting it, and there was this every night we would have several people coming to us every night. This happened. All the CDs, all in their hand, 4 CDs, right?
Yeah.
Saying, I've never heard of you guys before. I came to see Symphony X, or I came to see Nevermore, usually one of those two. So I'd never heard of you guys before, but wow. And they bought all our CDs. Like it was, and every night we were hearing this. This one dude, my favorite example of this is this one young kid, I don't know, must have been 18 years old or something. He came with a vinyl and he said, yeah, I'm actually embarrassed to say I'd never heard of you guys before. He said, he said, and to be honest, I'm kind of a black metal guy. He said, but what you guys do is darker than black metal could ever be. I thought, whoa, that sounds cool. So like this younger generation of people were receiving this and getting it right away. And another thing is, it could be that I learned how to express my own end of it, because like I personally think that anything that would have held our band up in terms of success probably has to do with me. Probably has to do with the fact that I'm not singing very memorable melodies. Probably has to do with maybe my vocal timbre's annoying to even me. So I totally get that. But when I was singing live, I kind of sing most of the time better live than on the records. Like my voice is different. And I think that I just sing it without that annoying timbre or something, and maybe more power, more clarity, or whatever it is.
Right then, so the next album, Mosquito, that's when you signed to Bulletproof Records, which is part of Music for Nations. How did that come about?
We in that Everflow time period, we started working with a LA management team called Woodbury Lyman Management, and these guys, they couldn't do much for us in Europe that we didn't already have, but what they did do is they got us some amazing opportunities in LA, which we never had before. For instance, for Everflow, we got to play in front of Warner Brothers executives. We got to go and play, showcase, like kind of audition for the label. To which they replied to our manager. They said, it's cool music, but it's not the cool music. That's what they said. So they passed on us. We were heartbroken. We thought we were going to be big Warner Brothers stars. But anyway, he got us to play some really cool gigs in the Palace Theater, one of which my favorite one was at Ricky Rackman's birthday party. And Ricky Rackman, I don't know if you remember him, but he was the metal host on MTV. He hosted the Headbangers Ball.
Oh, I know he is now, yeah.
And we got to play his birthday party. So it was us, there was Exodus, Pantera, White Zombie, and I can't remember. And when Pantera played, they were the headliners. And when Pantera played, Rob Halford came out and sang. And I remember in the VIP section, Lane Staley was kind of stumbling through, and I told him, I said, "Hey man, I really like your style." And he looked at me like he was really scared and bugged out of there. I don't know what his deal was, but that was so this Ray Woodbury guy got us like this really cool opportunities. And also he's the one that's like, okay, we're going to work with a good producer. And he hooked us up with Scott Burns. And I'm not even sure if Scott Burns came through him. It might've even come through Dan and Dan's friendship with Chuck from Death. Maybe that's where it came through, but Ray was with us at that time. And that was weird. That then we recorded our album in the record plant in Los Angeles. At least that's where I recorded my vocals, and I think the guitars also. And Norm recorded his drums at Mad Hatter Studio. That was the studio owned by Chick Corea. And I think Scott Burns did an amazing job on the drum sound. He did something really cool by putting a PA up and recording, I think the kick drum also from the PA. So there was a really good drum sound on that record. But also this was a really weird time of the band because Scott Burns was all over, my singing and my melodies, and he was practically yelling at me, you know.
Really?
And he had one like really interesting point, and because I liked my melodies, it's especially back then, I really liked them. But he was like, I can't remember anything you do. If I hear any song you do, I can't remember anything. And it's, you know, the stuff has got to be memorable, you know? And I told him, like, I'm not trying to write catchy music. And he said, look, man, I don't care what record you pull out of your collection, you know, whatever band you're into, you can't tell me that those guys didn't write something that is memorable. They didn't find a way to write something that's memorable that you like. And I thought, well, that's a good point. But then I was left guessing what's memorable. You know, that was, I really got thrown off my game because I was no longer judging my work through my own heart. I was kind of guessing what somebody wants to hear from me, what Scott would want to hear from me. And every time I would change it, I wouldn't get closer to what he likes. I'd get further from it, you know? And so the morale in the band was getting kind of low. And especially with me, I wasn't having a lot of fun in those sessions. And it was even worse on Bleeding. It was even worse. In fact, Scott walked out halfway through, and then the recording of that album got a lot more pleasant, you know?
Right.
But I think that with the thing, like, I admire about Scott Burns is that he knows what he's talking about, and he has a very good ear, especially when it comes to pitch. But the thing that I don't like about working with a guy like that is, well, what it is that makes me not call him a guy like that is that he has no melodic input. By working with Scott, with a guy that knows he doesn't like what he's hearing, but doesn't know how to solve the problem.
Yeah, because he's used to death metal, isn't he? He's used to working with death metal bands.
Yeah. The Bleeding record, he was like, I don't know if he is some kind of a genius or some kind of idiot, but I don't know how somebody can constantly sing a half step sharp perfectly through the whole fucking record, you know? And I was like going, yeah, I wonder that too. Sometimes that would happen to me live too. Like I would be singing and I would think, God damn, this is perfect. And then I listen to the recording, and I'm a little bit sharp the whole way through. And I learned this is from this really loud volume, and it causes this an illusion of pitch. And but I also found that there's a solution to this. Like, one could be turning the headphones down, first of all. But the first thing I tried was to take the headphones off and sing with the monitor speakers.
Yeah.
I'm kind of jumping ahead because this is what we did in the Bleeding album. But and if you put the monitor speakers in an equal triangle from the microphone, and then you put them in mono and you put one of them out of phase, what happens is that you hear it, but if it's the right distance, the mic doesn't hear it. The sound cancels out at the mic. So I sang that whole record of Bleeding just with some studio monitors in the room and no headphones, and all the pitch problems went away. Scott walked out before that happened saying it's going to take more than a couple of monitors to solve like 10 years of bad habits, you know?
Yeah.
And but he was wrong, because I don't have pitch problems, not to my ear, on that record. But if you listen to, if I got away, you know, I did okay with the pitch on Mosquito, but if you listen to Dancing in the Ashes, it starts out in pitch and then it drifts sharp. And then it stays sharp, like on the verses, I'm a little bit sharp. Those headphones were so loud that I'm a little bit sharp there, and I can't listen to that anymore. And of course, he would be right to say, this is garbage. You can't do this. You can't have this. But he didn't have the know-how to solve that problem. But fortunately I did, and I was able to solve it.
So what songs from the Mosquito are your favourites? I mean, I love Haze One. I think that's a fantastic song.
Haze One. I love Haze One, especially for performing live. I think that that's something that really makes us sound different than other bands. It's not even metal anymore, but it's really vibey, and it always brings me to the moment of being on the road. That's what that song's about.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Yeah,
you know, that was the third album. Like what I was telling you, I try to have this journey on my lyrical content with the problems of the world, the escape into the Everflow. Then the third album was like when I finally started to have enough life experience that I can draw on and sing about it. I can sing about being on tour. I can sing about waiting, you know, I can sing about kind of day in the life sort of stuff and have it be something where there's some wisdom behind it. And I don't know if you call it wisdom, but at least there's some experience behind it and some memories behind it, and it represents something. And these songs, especially his one, always brings me back to that. It brings me back to the bus. It brings me back on the stage. It brings me back to meeting the people and you know, feeling really good about our.
I think the song Wings Song's got like a reggae beginning. Is that the one? If I'm right in saying it's got like a bit reggae sort of start to it. That's an interesting song.
Yeah. That one. I remember when we had Ray Woodbury, right, the manager I was telling you about, and Dan Rock made this joke, and he wrote that song as reggae, but he wrote the word Ray gay, and that's funny. I think he was making fun of Ray. Ray wasn't gay, but he was just, that's what he wrote. And I was getting into Bob Marley a lot then too, but that was like space reggae. You know, I think that we took reggae in a place that it's never really been before. You know, it wasn't really reggae, like, because I'm pretty sure they're down picking and not up picking, and you have to up pick if you're playing reggae. You know.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
But I love that song. I love the melody. I love the turns that it takes. I love singing that song. Yeah.
I mean, when you had some lineup changes, I mean, Ward left and you got Phil on bass. What happened there with Ward? What the reason from leaving?
Phil didn't play bass on that record.
Right. Okay.
That was Ward played bass on that record, but he got kind of kicked out. I would have never kicked Ward out. I never had anything against him at all. Not at all. But he and Dan had a bad chemistry. You know, there was a tension between them a lot, and Dan pretty much said, "Well, it's not working out," and I was sad about that. But I thought it was pretty shitty to put Phil's photo on there instead of Ward, and say that Phil played. And Dan, the reason he said he did it was he said, well, this is the guy that they're going to see on stage. This is the guy that they're going to see when we go play. And then he told me how Ozzy did that and all that. I never really felt good about it, but that was the way it came out. You know, when bands break up, it's over shit like that. You know, it's over like, well, that's not right, but it being done anyway. And that would really get under the skin, especially when that band is all you have. You know, everything really matters. Once it got to a point to where I was going to go and do my own thing, and that band was, you know, dispersing, and